All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Makia Thomas, and I serve as a program officer at the Powell Foundation, which is based in Houston, Texas. And I'm a proud member of this year's conference planning committee. It is truly it is truly my honor to introduce our closing plenary speaker, Dr. Shawn Ginwright, someone whose book, The Four Pivots: Reimagining Justice, Reimagining Ourselves, has profoundly shaped not only how I do this work, but who I am becoming in this work. In full transparency, this was the first book that I read post January 20th this year. And it forced me to recognize that this was going to call for something radically different. There was a time where I measured my impact by what I could do, the strategies, the grants, the initiatives, the partnerships. But in this book, Dr. Ginwright challenges us to ask a more courageous question. Who do I need to become in this moment? That shift from doing to becoming has been transformational. It invited me to look inward with honesty, compassion, to confront my own biases, privilege, and judgment. I've learned that transformation doesn't just happen out there, but it begins with me. It's what moves us from transactional, where we're consumed with our titles, roles, and we let those define us, to the transformational, where vulnerability, trust, and care become the true measures of leadership. Over these last 3 days, grounded in the theme, Transformative Philanthropy, Courageous and Visionary Leadership, my commitment to this work has only deepened. It is clear that we are at an inflection point, and we must ask ourselves, will we lean into the uncertainty of this moment with courage and boldness, or cling to the status quo? Because this isn't just a moment, we must catalyze and sustain a movement. Which brings me to telling you a little bit more about Dr. Ginwright. He is a Jerome T. Murphy Professor of Practice at Harvard Graduate School of Education. He is also the co-founder and CEO of Flourish Agenda, Inc., and formerly served as the chairman of the board for the California Endowment, where he helped steward a $5 billion endowment focused on improving the health and well-being of underserved communities. His groundbreaking work on trauma healing and the empowerment of African American youth has made him one of the most visionary and provocative thinkers in education today. Dr. Ginwright continues to push us to reimagine what's possible to lead with courage, imagination, and care. So as we welcome him today, I invite you to hold space for this truth. The transformation we seek in the world begins right here with who we are becoming. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ginwright.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. It is an honor. It's a pleasure to be here. I have a lot to say, so I'm going to try to say it quickly in 20 minutes because I think we really want to have a conversation about where we are and where we want to go. Before I kind of get started with the comments that I prepared, I wanted to kind of talk about the context that we're in. And I'm not going to talk about the politics. I'm not going to talk about white supremacy. I'm not talking about the divisions and the political divisions that we're facing, not talking about the White House dismantling education. I think these are important issues, but they're not the real issue. The first thing I want to talk about is uncertainty itself and the role of uncertainty. And many of us that have been engaged in this work, educational justice work, we know that while uncertainty don't feel good, there's a purpose to uncertainty. If you think about times in your life where you were most uncertain, you were changing jobs, you were separating from a relationship, you were at odds with someone, whatever that uncertainty was, chances are that if you went through it again, you could deal with it, right? And so it was uncertainty that transformed you in a way that allows you to show up better. And I think that if uncertainty can do that for us as individuals, then that is the role of uncertainty now for us as a nation. that there's a purpose to uncertainty for us to shed the things that no longer serve our movements. There's a role of uncertainty for us to let go of things that don't serve us. There's a role of uncertainty for us to show up differently and more courageously than we have before. The second sort of piece of this context, and sometimes I feel like I'm crazy because I feel like we're having that sometimes we're trying to solve the wrong problem, right? And there are really only two types of problems, right? There's tactical problems and there's spiritual problems. Tactical problems we know how to solve, right? There is an existing body of knowledge that we can go and look up, and we could try to solve that problem with a strategy, and we can look at how the strategy is having the impact, and we measure outcomes. Those are tactical problems, right? And then there's spiritual problems where there are no answers. And spiritual problems requires a different path. And I'm concerned that we are trying to solve spiritual problems with tactical tools. I'm concerned that we're trying to solve spiritual problems with a strategy. Y'all feel me? I'm concerned that we're trying to solve spiritual problems with a plan. And if we continue down this path to use our strategy as our Bible, to use our strategic plan as our map, then I'm concerned that we will actually have outcomes that we believe are success, but actually reproduce the same condition that started in the first place. So I got a lot to say today. I was watching, I ain't even gotten to the talk yet. This just, but I'm watching the time. I'm watching it, brother. I'll watch it. So I was watching Ezra Klein and Ta-Nehisi Coates. They had a debate. Y'all saw that? It was brilliant, right? Ezra Klein is brilliant. Ta-Nehisi Coates is amazingly brilliant, and I watched it with just awe and wonder, and kind of watched them sort of debate the brilliance. And I came to the end of that sort of YouTube video, and I was like, wow, man, that was brilliant, but I'm not sure they had the right conversation. Ezra Klein and all his brilliance solved the issues that we needed to solve as better political strategy, right? If we came up with another strategy, if we can really rethink how we move as progressives, that we can actually have a bigger base, and we can expand our politics. And Ta-Nehisi Coates, for all his brilliance and his facts, were focused on sort of his fatalistic way of understanding the ways in which black folks have suffered in this country. And I thought, again, brilliant, but it was the wrong question, y'all. And I think what I want to share with you today is the reason I wrote this book is that the question that we need to address is not what we do, but who do we become in this moment, right? What is our courage? What is our faith? What is our vision? And what are we willing to risk? And if we're not asking ourselves these questions individually, we're going to do some work today individually, but also collectively. And how we actually think about grant making, how we're thinking about the assets that we have in different ways to actually create a different condition. I always say that sometimes we overly focus on the outcomes, that we can get the outcomes in schools, and we can get the outcomes with better grades, we can get the outcomes in cities, but we sometimes forget the conditions. If you were a gardener, my daddy was a gardener. My daddy said, he would always, when I was a kid, he would take like 2 or 3 days just to be tilling the soil. He was just tilling. I'm like, Dad, why are you playing with the dirt so much? And he said, nah, son, what I'm doing is disturbing the soil. When you disturb the soil, right, you're preparing the conditions for the tomatoes to grow. I don't have to worry about how many tomatoes this plant will grow because I've already put the focus in the conditions. Y'all feel me? So what are the conditions that we're trying to create and cultivate with our grant making? What are the conditions that we're trying to create to produce the outcomes that we seek. One of those conditions, I think, are about our vision. I want to share this quick story, and I'm going to get to this, right? Can you guys go to the slides? I always like to start this story with my mama because she helped me to really think differently about this book. And she said, when I was, this is about 10 years ago, she really wanted me to go to her hometown. She was raised in a little town outside of Jacksonville, Florida, called Trenton. Trenton is a little town, y'all. Like, on one side of the town is one side of the family, and the other town is a small town. And she wanted me to go because my uncle had passed away, and I was like, Mom, I ain't got time to go to Trenton. I got papers to grade. I got this to do. And she said, boy, you better get your narrow butt on this plane and come down to Trenton, Florida. So I'm a good son. I did what my mama asked, and we went down to Trenton, Florida. And I went, right? And I'm so glad I went because it changed my life. She's so proud. My mama, she's so proud. This is my son, the doctor, my son, the doctor. And so we went to every cousin's, y'all know what I'm talking about, right? And so we went to my cousin's house, and when I was a kid, my mama used to tell us this beautiful story about how she grew up as a child. And as we were growing up, me and my brothers would be fascinated about this little house that she always told us about. And so deep down inside, I wanted to see that house that she had always shared with us when I was a child. She would tell us about the picket fence and the mangoes on the trees. She would tell us about these little bugs that would fly and they would glow in the dark. And as a child, we were enchanted, right? So when I got down to Trenton, Florida, we sat on my cousin's couch, and the couch with the plastic covers. Some of y'all still got them plastic covers on the couch. Don't get my couch dirty. And she would just, she would tell us stories, and I was like, Mom, I want to go see the house that you grew up in, right? And so we went from cousin's house to cousin's house to cousin's house. So finally, she said, okay, baby, I'm gonna take you to see the house that I always told you about. So we walked down the street, and we turned left down this dirt road, right? And, in the South here, like I grew up outside of LA, and when we went down this dirt road, there are trees. And the trees have moss. And the moss canopied the road as we walked down this dirt road in silence. And I was so excited to see this house that my mama had always told me about, the white little picket fence and the mangoes. And sure enough, as we began to walk, it was getting later in the afternoon, and I could see the creek off to the left, and I saw these little bugs. And as a child growing up outside of LA, we had never seen no flies that glow in the dark. And I was an adult, I was like, ooh, ooh, right? And we kept on walking, and I saw the creek, and she pointed out the mango trees. And I was like, oh, Mom, those are the mango trees. I was so excited like a child. And so I'm like, Mom, where's the house? Where's the house? And so we kept on walking a little bit further. She said, son, we're here. And as I turned and looked, this is what I saw. The house. And when I saw the house, I nearly, and as I actually look at it now, I get emotional because it was the first time that I realized the level of poverty my mama grew up in. She never shared with me that story. And I became emotional when I saw the house. But my mama, she saw something entirely different, y'all. She took my hand and led me into it was only one room, ain't rooms. She led me into the house, and the floors were cricket, they were squeaking, and she said, see, baby, this is where we used to keep the number 10 tub. Now, number 10 tub, y'all know what that is? Yeah. Oh, you do? Okay. It's a big metal tub where they put hot water to take a bath because there's no running water. And she showed me the mark on the floor where there was a potbelly stove, right, to heat the place. And as she was telling me, man, and I was getting emotional, and Mom, I didn't know. And she was like, son, what's up with you? Why are you so upset? I'm like, Mom, I just didn't know. I didn't know you grew up with such poverty. You never told me and my brothers that. And she said, you know what, son, I want you to know something. don't cry here, because you coming here is a realization of my dreams. Don't you know, baby, that I dreamed of you before you even existed? And for me, you to come back here is a realization of my dreams. And when she said that, it shifted me, y'all. And I realized that my mama understood poverty, but she was not defined by it. I realized that my mama understood the context and the challenges that she was in, but she was not defined by it. And so I use that story as an introduction to why I wrote the book, The Four Pivots. That there are things that she did and shifted and that we all need to do that actually allows us to not be defined by this moment. In the book, I call for four important shifts, four important pivots. And I call them pivots because a pivot is easier than a shift, right? If I say we got to shift, you got to change, right? A pivot is subtle. That means if you're going in this direction, but you just pivot a little bit, you might end up in an entirely different direction. And so I call them pivots because they're subtle things that we can do individually, we could do with our teams and our organizations that makes a significant difference. But it allows us to not do everything as normal. The first pivot I call a pivot from lens to mirror. And much of our work, and even my work as a trained sociologist, I've been trained to have a lens on the world. I could tell you every theory, I can name the statistics about why African American young people experience more disproportionality. I could talk about the research. I could talk about all the things that were happening in chocolate cities around the country with black and brown children. But I wasn't prepared for in graduate school is a conversation about losing a young man that was shot and killed in Oakland that we worked with, to sit across from his mama. I wasn't prepared for that reflection about who I needed to become. And so mirror work, right, is a lot harder than lens work. Mirror work, I call it mirror work because the mirror, like everybody woke up, most of y'all woke up this morning and looked in the mirror, right? And the mirror don't lie, right? The mirror reflects back to you the honest truth of what you put in front of it. And mirror work is somehow and sometimes absent from the work that we do in our foundations. It's sometimes absent from the work that we do with ourselves. And sometimes it's absent from the work that we do with our teams. But most of us sometimes look at mirror work like this, right? Like, how am I supposed to lose weight if everything tastes good, right? In other words, what is the use of mirror work, right? I got grants, I got foundations, I got stuff to do, I got a lot to do. What good is mirror work? And so we have to do the deep reflection that actually matters. The second pivot is a pivot from transactional to transformative relationships. I know John Powell talked about the power of relationships and the power of belonging. And transactional relationships are relationships that are largely defined by our role, our position, authority. I am the funder, you are the grantee, right? I am the CEO, you are the employee. Transformative relationships are relationships that are based on vulnerability and trust and transparency and care. How do you think about cultivating transformative relationships in your work as a foundation, as a program officer, right? How much honest conversations about, if I had more time, y'all, I could talk, but I don't have it. But how often do we be human with each other, right? Transformative relationships are only cultivated when we spill out our humanity on each other, when we're honest and we talk about the things that concern us. The next pivot is a pivot from problem to possibility, right? And I know that much of our work, right, is focused so much on eliminating problems, but we know that the elimination of a problem isn't the presence of what we want to see. And so much of our work, just like the absence of illness, doesn't constitute health. The absence of violence does not constitute peace. And much of our work has been so focused on the elimination of a problem. And so what we do sometimes is that we call lower levels of misery success. We have fewer suspensions. We have lower recidivism. We have lower rates of poverty. We have lower rates of violence. And all these are important preconditions. But do they constitute the thing that we want to see? So when I talk about possibility, investing and thinking about thinking about what it is we want rather than what it is we want to eliminate. And this is hard work. Again, if I had some more time, I could give you examples of folks that are doing work in California and in New York who have been focused on eliminating issues around juvenile justice. But when they won and now have $5 billion in the state budget, kind of go, oh shit, what are we supposed to do now? Y'all feel me? Investing in this space to reimagine, to dream, to hope are important and fundamental injustice work that sometimes we forget. The last pivot, I'm gonna skip past these, you guys, is a pivot from hustle to flow, right? And this pivot is simply say that, you know, a lot of, if I had $1 for every time I talked to folks, and I used to chair a board in a foundation. I'm not like a philanthropist. I don't like giving money out, but I'm kind of familiar with that environment. There's a way in which we engage in persistent and consistent frenzy, right? That frenzy becomes the way, it becomes the water we drink. We gotta have a timeline, we gotta get the grants out, we gotta get the reports in. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And while things are urgent, and while things are important, and while we have to move quickly sometimes, we also have to balance that with flow. And that sometimes when we engage in constant frenzy, it becomes an addiction. We become addicted to frenzy. So much so that in our culture, if someone asks you, sometimes we ask like, hey man, how you doing? We respond, oh, I'm so busy. I got this meeting to go to, and I'm getting ready to go to this conference, and I got this presentation, that we kind of congratulate ourselves for having full calendars. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Don't sit here like you don't know what I'm talking about. And that's part of our culture, right? Because it really, when we do that, it says I matter, that I'm important. But the consequences of that is the absence of deep reflection, right? The absence of deep reflection. So flow simply means that we intentionally disrupt that pattern. It disrupted with us individually and in our organizations. How do we actually set more realistic timelines for ourselves? How do we actually say no more often without guilt, right? All of these micro patterns of these pivots ultimately lead us to a different way of being in our work and in our organizations. I know I'm at time, but I'm gonna end with this quote. I'm at time, right? Okay. I could keep going, I could keep going, I could keep going. I could keep going. No, he said, man, I'm gonna send you the 5-minute sign with 5 minutes. That was like 10 minutes ago. I saw him go like that. So Michelle Alexander, one of perhaps the most brilliant legal mind of our time, wrote the book, The New Jim Crow. Changed how we thought about the legal system. And her work is still reverberating in organizations and consciousness and classrooms and work around the country. About 10 years ago, Michelle Alexander wrote in the New York Times a wonderful article. And she said in the article that I'm not going to practice law anymore. She said that she was going to enroll into the Union Theological School. And the reason she said she was going to enroll in the Union Theological School, in this New York Times article, she said, "I'm not so sure. I am not yet convinced that the problems that we have in our society are the political problems. I'm not so sure that at its core that the problems that we're dealing with are completely policy problems." She says that she enrolled in the Union Theological School because there are profound moral and ethical and spiritual questions about who we are, who we aim to become, and what we're willing to do now. And I think that is the charge for all of us in our grant making and in our personal lives. One question that I'd like for us to consider as we leave and as a charge is, well, actually it's two questions, and then we'll have a conversation, is what does it mean to fund courage? What does it mean to fund courage? Not to fund, now there's probably an organization called Courage somewhere, so it's not what I'm talking about. Y'all know, what does it mean to fund courage? Right? To actually invest in things that may not have the specific outcome of your strategy. Right now, I'm going to say this, and I need to sit down because I'm out of time. If we're sticking with the strategy, it's already outdated. The environment has already shifted. The strategy that you developed is really irrelevant at this particular point. That's how I said it. So the conversation needs to happen with your teams and with your CEO and your board of directors. If we're still at 5%, I'm sorry. This is a 12, 20, 15% time. So we have to ask ourselves, what does it mean to fund courage? Second question, what are you willing to risk? Not your foundation, not your team. What are you willing to risk? We are here in Memphis. My ancestors risked a lot so that I could stand here before you today. My mama risked a lot so that I could stand before you today. What are you willing to risk? And that's a personal question, but it's so relevant, y'all, right now. Okay, I gotta stop. Thank y'all very much.
All right. Can y'all hear me? Okay, perfect. So that was amazing, y'all, wasn't it? Wasn't that amazing? So at this time, he left us with two questions, Dr. Ginwright. He left us with two questions. We want to give you an opportunity to do a little bit of table talk. We're going to provide an opportunity for also question and answer. But I'm just going to start off, Dr. Ginwright. Like, you talked a lot about these conditions, ensuring there's these conditions that are present and really pushing us to think about that. Could you speak a little bit more? I'm curious to hear if there are any insights that you have to really push us in our roles at our foundations to really think about how do we create different conditions for this time, this moment.
Yeah, so, you know, one of the things that, and I'll just use California as an example, and because my work is around justice and organizing, I'll use that as an example. You know, a number of foundations realized after a number of successful wins in California that there was significant amount of money at the state budget, and many of the organizations that were funding, they were funding the fight, not the dream. Y'all feel me? They were funding for years the fight and not the dream. But once the fight was won, and once there was the shift, many of the organizations scratched their head about what do we do now? And what many of, a couple of these other foundations, I know the California Endowment, realize that our funding sort of this strategy around organizing, while important, missed an important ingredient, which is funding the dream. And so outside of the strategy, the endowment and I think a couple of other foundations decided to just fund dream space. What is dream space? Organizations come together, they go on retreats, they think. Y'all remember the Highlander, right? Those spaces are real. The civil rights movement was largely the intellectual and the spiritual grounding of the civil rights movement was because people were able to go to Highlander and talk and rest and dream and rethink and ponder. So the endowment made some shifts outside of its strategy to say, what if we actually created a fund so that folks can do the thing and to go away, to reimagine, to not plan, don't come back to us with another damn plan, just be. We don't know the outcome of that investment, but we know that the conditions are right. And so that's an important condition.
No, that's perfect. That dream space piece, allowing us to dream, to reimagine, do it differently, right? I know time, so I want to provide opportunity for anyone as you thought about those two questions that were framed earlier, which was what does it mean to fund courage, and what are you willing to risk? If there's anything that's coming up for anybody at the tables, we have 2 microphones around, or any other questions, any other thoughts that are coming up for you all at this time. Don't be shy. We have one.
Thank you thank you so much, for all that you said. And it's not really a question, it's just an opportunity for you to expand on some of what you said. What I heard you say is we can't solve spiritual problems with tactical solutions, and what you just said about time and space without metrics. We are people who live in tactical and in metrics.
Yep.
Help us bridge the gap.
Wow, I'll help you bridge the gap. So part of philanthropy, I'm actually writing this piece now called Healing-Centered Philanthropy. But part of the challenge of philanthropy, and I'm not just pointing out specific, is that there's a culture of problem solving. Let's invest in the problem, right? And so that the nature of that culture begs outcomes to see how we're actually investing in, how we're moving and tracking towards that problem. And so, and there, the thing about philanthropy as well is that we expect results based on an investment. We invest the dollars, we want to see a return. So that capitalistic sort of way of thinking about resources is problematic, particularly in this time. And while I'm not saying we should not focus on outcomes, but if it's a sort of fiend focus on metrics and outcomes, we're missing the bigger picture. Social change is about relationships. It's about trust. It's about being able to work together. I don't know if I'm helping you, but I think what I'm challenging and encouraging folks to think about is, how are you, those questions, how are you thinking about risks? Because to do that, is to shift from tactical strategies to spiritual, it's not like another strategy, right? It's not like, okay, let me shift now, and how would I do that? 1, 2, 3. It's about questioning. It's about your own, it's about your own compass, right? And so part of what I'm trying to encourage in this book is to wrestle with that question for a while. And not just wrestle with it with your team, wrestle with it with yourself, right? That's why I asked the question, what are you willing to risk? And that's a real question, because in your organizations, there's things you're not going to risk. Some of you, like, I'm not going to risk my job. I'm not going to risk my reputation, right? But what is it? Because it is the risk that is actually going to give you the courage to do something a little different. And I don't know if I've answered that question, but.
It's good to see you again, Dr. Ginwright. Tony Simmons, the new program director here at Grantmakers for Education. Just two things. One, I had a chance 2 years ago to hear you present the 4 pivots and talk about your mama and the trip at the Grantmakers for Effective Organizations conference. So let me just give you, so let me just give you this. It's like seeing a good movie for the second time. You pick up some additional pieces. So I thank you. A question coming back to 2 things that you talked about. One, this issue of risk, and also the trustee space. So as a trustee of a big dog foundation, I'm going to ask you a question. And I don't know if it's a question or a comment or a thought. We all know that the righteous work in philanthropy cannot happen if trustees don't support it and get behind it, right? A lot of the good work that happens, if it's not an institution, it's the individual. And when that individual leaves the institution, sometimes that good work does. So can you talk a little bit about the risk aversion amongst trustees?
Well,
That's a good one.
simple question. Yeah, man. Oh, wow. So I was a trustee for 10 years, large foundation. And I'm going to speak from my experience and then how I think we shifted as a board. For some trustees, it is their money, but it wasn't mine. So let me just be really clear. Your job is to give the money out. It ain't my money. Right? Let me just start with that, right? My job as a trustee is to not protect the corpus. Like, I'm not even going to use those terms. So I think there is a culture among trustees that is risk averse, right? It's risk averse, and it's needlessly risk averse. And I say needlessly because the philanthropic sector has the most capacity and space to be risky. There's no consequence. If you're in the private sector and you risk, you might go out of business. If you're in the public sector and you invest, well, that's public dollars. But philanthropy could literally do whatever it wants, yet it is the most, y'all feel me, right? It's the most risk, right? So your question is about, like, what does it take for trustees? I think it's at least 2 things, Wayne. I think one is to call out the challenges of some of the challenges and the risk aversion that exist, like name it, just to name it first. On our board, just to give you a really quick example, after the movements for Black Lives had sort of burst out of our country, our foundation had been focusing on years with what was called zip code inequality. Y'all remember, it's California endowment, the zip code can determine your health and all the things. And we had Black Lives Matter, we had all this stuff, and as a board, we had not had a conversation about race. It's about zip codes. That's what causes all the problems. And I'm like, that's a zip code is a sort of a, y'all know what I'm talking about. It's safer.
Yeah.
Grantees is like, y'all got to come out of the closet about race. The program officers were like, we got to come out of the closet about race. The CEO was like, hey, board, we got to come out of the closet. The board was like, nah, I don't really want to do that. So we had to have a different conversation. So for some reason, they asked me to be the chair. Bet, I got you. So my job as a chair is to protect the CEO, to protect his courage, not his decisions, his courage. right? That was my job, is to protect his courage. So we decided to have a different conversation. I said, hey, this board meeting, the first 4 hours, we're not gonna have the board tables. We're gonna sit in circle. We're gonna do what we do in community. What we fund, you fund organizing, we're gonna do that. So we sat in circle, y'all, for like 3 or 4 hours. And I asked every board member to bring something from their childhood. A watch, picture of your grandmama, whatever. Bring something from your childhood that shaped you today. It was a very simple question. And everybody brought something. And then we had a different conversation about race. We still disagreed. Like, we still had disagreement about race. But because I heard your story, because I heard your pain, I didn't dehumanize you. So anyway, I'm giving you a long, it's supposed to be a short explanation. We have to do things differently in a boardroom, right? You have to do things differently if you want different results. That led to a different decision about how we came up about race and how we did a $500 million investment in black organizing in California. And so it came from different conversations. We're not gonna get a different outcome if you do the same thing, so.
Any other questions? I think we have time for at least one more from the audience. Okay.
Dr. Ginwright, thank you so much. It was really inspiring talk. You mentioned something about your mother not being defined by her poverty.
Mm-hmm.
That made me cry, literally. And it reminds me of something else I've heard recently about when you play a victim, when you act a victim, you are giving your power to someone else. Can you elaborate on the juxtaposition of those comments, please, sir?
Well, there's a difference between the condition and the sort of, suffering is real, y'all. Suffering is real. I work and live in Oakland and in Boston, and I have students that are going through it right now. So suffering is real. And so suffering can also erode our spiritual strength, because excuse me, guys, excuse me. Suffering can erode our spiritual strength, meaning that it can erode our spiritual strength, or it can actually enhance it. And what I mean by that is suffering can we focus so much on, let me end the thing, let me end the suffering, let me end the pain, let me end the thing, focus on ending the thing is hurting, let me stop the thing. It's like, if you have a pebble in your shoe and you're walking, all you can think about is that damn pebble in your shoe. I gotta get it out, right? And I think the example of my mother is she's like, I got a pebble in my shoe and one day it will be out. And I will have sandals walking on the beach or something. My mama don't like the beach, but you get my metaphor, right? Is that the condition doesn't have to define you. And I think part of what we've been doing in philanthropy is allowing the condition to define us, to define the strategy, to define, and it's not an either or. I don't want folks to walk away saying, Ginwright is saying, don't fund the strategy. I'm not saying that. It's that we have to have both in this moment. We have to focus on both. We can't just have one particular way that we're doing our philanthropy.
Do you have time for any more? One more, if there's anyone else. Well, if not, I'll close out and then have your final. One more. Oh.
Really appreciate it. I think, when you were talking about spaces, the thing that came to mind is also when we think about Andrew Carnegie and Rockefeller and the spaces they created, right? Mm-hmm. They believed in alleviating suffering in the moment, but also, if you think about early philanthropy, it was about creating these libraries, creating these institutions. And yes, there's a lot to them as well wrapped in that. But I think that that's a reminder of the power of space and what it can do. And they didn't set metrics for these libraries or these spaces. In a way, there was like, what will be the emergent properties of these spaces? And it's just, these are emergent properties that almost you can't have metrics. I mean, think about water, and just by looking at hydrogen and oxygen, you would never know that it would give you a beautiful thing that is a neutral substance of life. So can you expand on like where that shift in philanthropy happened, where there has been almost a stop in the end of space? Like, can you point to certain?
Yeah, and I don't know if Andrew Carnegie was also a capitalist, right? But I hear your question about the sort of creating conditions, right? Conditions in and of themselves. I don't know how we got here as a sector. I don't actually know how we got here as a sector. All I know is that we're here, right? And sort of dissecting all of the tax codes and all of that's important. Like we really need to be thinking about the actual tax code itself that requires us to sort of give out the 5%. We really need to reimagine that, but I don't know how we got here to be so risk averse. I think that having conversations like this, being in meetings like this, asking oneself, like, specifically, what does it mean for me to fund courage? And really take that question seriously with yourself and your teams. That's when we begin to sort of move the dial a bit on being more comfortable with investing in conditions and less in outcomes. Right? Great question.
All right. Well, I know our time together is coming to a close, but I just want to thank you. You've been very influential, as I named earlier, and something I heard at this conference and just through what you shared this morning was just I heard this quote: courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. So feel the fear and do it anyway. And I kept hearing this resonating theme throughout the last couple of days as doing it anyway, doing it differently. And so I just appreciate you lifting that up today. But I want to give you the final closing words for this session.
I said enough, right? I just hope that when you leave here, that you ponder, wrestle, discuss, think about the spiritual problem here. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about intangibles, about faith, about vision, about courage, about insecurity, about all of these things that actually make our grant making matter. And like, how are you taking this charge back to your organizations, back to your teams, back to your trustees, back to your CEOs, to have spaces for a different conversation? So, thank y'all.
Good morning. We're gonna get started with the next part, the final part of our program. But good morning, everyone. My name is Kara Comperchum, and I'm the special assistant here at Grantmakers for Education. I'm so excited to welcome you all here to the 2025 Ignited Awards ceremony. These awards were first launched last year, and this year marks an exciting milestone. For the first time, we opened the nomination process to our entire member network. That change brought in a wave of powerful stories and inspiring nominations, each one highlighting the bold ideas and innovative thinking that move our field forward. Facilitating this process was a unique experience for our team. We had the privilege of learning about the work of individuals, partnerships, and organizations through the eyes of their peers. It was a reminder of the deep commitment and creativity that exists across our network. Before we move into the award presentations, I just want to give a special thank you to our selection committee, Paul Herdman from Rodell, Susan Johnson from Lumina, and Richard Tagley from E3 Alliance. And of course, I want to give a huge thank you to the Ed Funder staff who supported the nomination reviews. I'm now happy to pass the mic over to our inaugural awardees, Marla Keship-Uselli and Kent McGuire, along with our executive director, Nicole Rodriguez-Leach, who will help us celebrate this year's honorees.
You know, if I had a nickel for every time I have stood next to this gentleman in the education, philanthropy, or policy space, I would have a lot of nickels, I would say. So this is a wonderful experience, and much less the stealth activity that happened last year. We thought we were coming to kick off the 30th anniversary year, and instead we were being honored, and it was an incredible honor. Just want to say two quick things. One is that, you know, I'm really quite smart. So the Ignited Awards, get this, everything to do with it has something to do with a flame or a spark, or it's pretty clever the way you named all those awards. And that is because we need the education philanthropy field to be on fire right now and always. And the other thing I want to say is what was so special about last year was not so much us, although we're very special. It was how the field of education philanthropy has grown, matured, and deepened in the years of the existence of Grantmakers for Education. So we're celebrating that again, all over again today with today's winners. Kent.
I need some nickels, Marla. I need some nickels. That's all I want to say. I think recognition is important, acknowledging the accomplishments of people. That's important work. And I think each of these awards is in a way an example of what Shawn was telling us just a bit earlier. It isn't so much about a particular thing one or another of these folks have done, although I'm sure that figured prominently in how they were nominated, but it's about who each of these people are becoming. So I thought that was a hugely important observation. I'm also glad to know that they know they're getting these rewards, right? Right? I mean, I was feeling some kind of way last year, you know, when I thought I was up to sort of tee up the 30th anniversary. That's what we were told, right? We were, you know, come up here, you know, you would be the right people to sort of tee up a year of celebration. We're going to do this, that, and the next thing. And then we didn't get to do that at all. Well, in that case, what I'd just like to say before we get into this is that I think this has been a marvelous celebration, Nicole, of GFE's 30 years, and we should applaud you and the team for that. All right. We figured out how we're going to do this, right? All right. Yeah.
So with that, we're ready to get started. We are going to begin with the Kindle Award. And you are actually, this is our little.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, that's
okay,
right.
so you're
So
gonna
I'm
read
gonna
that.
do that.
Yeah,
Right.
you're gonna
I'm
read
gonna do that, right.
that. And then I'll.
Kindle. It's not. It is about a spark. It's to stir up and arouse, right? And the award winner is Jonathan Reed. I could talk about Jonathan but I'm going to let Jonathan talk about it, right? Let me do this. Let me do this. This is part of my job, right? Do this. Don't move. Jonathan is celebrated for his equity-driven, community-centered philanthropy. In just a few years, he launched an innovative grant-making strategy that included a $2 million initiative for Southern nonprofits, and he revitalized higher education in prison funding, all while leading national philanthropic networks with a justice-focused lens. Congratulations, Jonathan.
Wow. So I gotta say, when I got the email, letting me know that I was getting the Kindle Award, something happened that like rarely ever happens. I was speechless. You know what I mean? So if anybody knows me, I love to talk. I could talk to anybody about anything at any time, anywhere, in any part of the world. And so like initially I was shocked, but then like I was overcome with like a lot of gratitude. So there are a lot of people to thank, and if I don't mention your name explicitly, please know that I still hold the connection and impact that we have together really, really close. And that like they told me I got like 2 minutes for this, so I gotta keep it rolling. So first I'd like to thank my ECMC Foundation colleagues, Paula Cashton, Jen Zeisler, and the rest of my strategically responsive team and the whole foundation for kind of like leading the charge in this nomination. That like they kept quiet, and it really did catch me off guard. Certainly my PSA2, post-secondary access and attainment. Impact Group co-chairs, give it up for PSA2, Jenny Achilles and Robin Atterbury Ellis, and the rest of the PSA2 steering committee, who make this one of the best volunteer gigs in the world, for sure. And so just really quickly, Monday a few of us had the opportunity to head down to the Mississippi Delta. And if you haven't been on a GFE study tour, I highly recommend that you go and that you bring a member of your organization and your board. So we visited schools and we heard from leaders who are rooted in empowerment, justice, and telling the whole story. And what was apparent to me was this: people and place matter. Communities are resilient, and when you invest in students, you're actually investing in hope. And so like when we sit in rooms or on Zooms with people who aren't in this one, let's take back the lessons and lived experience that occurs in places and encourage those to know so that they can go, so that it informs the strategy refreshes and the theories of action that we love and hold dearly in philanthropy, but like more importantly, reaffirms our commitment to doing this work. So before I end, I just want to thank Nicole, Kyle, the rest of the GFE board, Sarah, and the commitment to providing a space for education funders to collaborate, convene, and learn. The planning committee for curating such an amazing time here in Memphis, and my beautiful and amazing partner who couldn't be here today, but is one of the most patient, I told you I talk a lot, and smartest people that I know. I'm sorry I took another work trip, but I promise you it was absolutely worth it. Thank you.
That was a great start. Our second award is the Fusion Award for collaborative efforts that creatively address challenges and advance learner opportunities. Do you want to talk about our Fusion Award winner, which is?
There's two of them.
It's an organization, but
Yeah.
we're getting two people.
You get
And the organization is Resource Equity Funders Collaborative. Kent.
Now, again, fusion makes a lot of sense. It's the act of joining two or more things into one thing, bigger thing. I have funded this, so I'm close. And the awardees, Jeannie Poopo Walker at the Rakes Foundation, and my good buddy Renee Blahuta at Kellogg. It is awarded for its powerful coalition of funders and advocates working to ensure fair school funding, hence the term resource equity, right? And their efforts have led to major policy wins in states like Maryland, California, and Pennsylvania, while defending public education from privatization in an effort to build a long-term infrastructure. Playing defense is sometimes the best offense. So congratulations to both of you.
Thank you, everybody. Jeannie and I are here today on behalf of the steering committee of the Resource Equity Funders Collaborative, also representing Raquel Donoso at the Skyline Foundation, who couldn't be here with us this morning, but was here with us this week. And just thank you, GFE, for recognizing the work of the REFC, and it's truly an honor to accept the Fusion Award on behalf of REFC's funders who believe that every school should have the resources to provide each student with what they need to thrive in school every day and be successful both in school and in life beyond school. The Fusion Award really just reminds us of an African proverb that if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. And so I think the REFC has really valued going together from its inception. And we've taken that to heart, and we work hard to keep collaboration in the forefront of the work that we do together as funders with our grantee partners and in the work we fund. And so I think the REFC focuses a lot of its work on and around the work of statewide education equity coalitions and funding and the work that they're doing to advance full and fair public school funding based on student needs and working to support children thriving as learners in school. And so today, I think it's the work of those coalitions in 14 states in this state of Tennessee that we've been learning in all week, across the South, but really across the country, that we really want to highlight, along with the work of the policy advocates, the organizers, and the folks who've been learning and working together to advance equitable school resourcing, playing defense, visioning for the long haul, and really providing, helping to support positive school experiences for all kids, working together day in and day out in tough situations that demand courage and conviction every day that we want to highlight and really lift up. So thank you again for recognizing our work. We're in it for the long haul. Check out our website, come talk to us, and really come join us so that we together can make it possible for our grantee partners to go even farther and all of us to go farther together. So thank you.
Okay. Next is the Catalyst Award. I'll just go ahead and read that paragraph, right? For leaders of organizations that go beyond their grant making to spur position change in education spaces and systems and increase access and opportunity for learners.
And the Catalyst Award winner is Julie Lammers, the new president and CEO of the American Student Association. I will say a little bit about that and then introduce Jing Cox-Oral, who is accepting the award on behalf of Julie, who couldn't be here today. Julie Lammers is recognized for transforming career readiness education through strategic advocacy, research, and a $65 million investment that has reached over 860,000 students. Her leadership has elevated middle school career exploration and influenced national policy to expand access to underserved learners. let's welcome Jing and make sure that Julie knows how much we missed giving this to her in person.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. My name is Jing Cox-Farrell. I'm the Associate Director of Youth Initiatives at American Student Assistance, and we are a national nonprofit changing the way kids learn about their careers and prepare for their futures through access to career readiness information for all. On behalf of ASA's President and CEO, Julie Lammers, thank you so much to GFE and this incredible organization for this honor. At ASA, we're really proud to be able to contribute to the recent rise in career readiness learning for the minds of students, educators, families, business makers, policies makers, and we really look forward to the day when all young people have equal opportunity to explore, experiment with, and transition into their dream careers. So thank you again for recognizing this work.
You get to take a picture. You get to take
I take a picture? We can't just like put Julie's on.
And now for our final award, bearing the wonderful and important term torchbearer. As you might guess, it's for a visionary leader committed to equitable education systems where all learners thrive.
The Torchbearer Award winner is Dr. John H. Jackson. John is the president and CEO of the Schott Foundation, and he's been being honored for his unwavering commitment to educational equity and racial justice. As president and CEO, he has championed community-led movements and public education advocacy, helping to build a multiracial democracy through inclusive policies, equitable funding, and culturally responsive education across the U.S. I just think it's very fitting. I've never been in a conversation with John that doesn't ultimately get all the way to building power at the community level. Congratulations.
So first of all, let me thank you, Nicole, for your leadership, and Sarah in holding it down. It's difficult to corral funders in general, but ed funders uniquely. I do want to say that there's a rumor going around by Tony Simmons that I have a tendency to talk longer than the time allotted. So I brought my stopwatch. So I've got 5 minutes.
I'm gonna start playing the piano if you
That's right, that's right. Let me just say, nothing like this happens without individuals who are in front of you to inspire you. Kent, Marla, there's never been a time when I've asked for time and you have not been willing to have a lunch, sit down, late night call, and I'm appreciative of that. And it doesn't happen without good people by your side. Family, my team at Schott, Mike, Sabrina, Melissa, thank you. And then colleagues and friends like Frank, Tasha, Gabby, Eola, some guy named Peter, to sort of go and stay in the trenches with you. And I say all of that because we are in this moment together. This is a moment, but we're in it together. When I worked with the NAACP, I had an opportunity to be in the presence of some of those that we call civil rights legacies, like Julian Bond and Myrlie Evers and the Little Rock Nine. And to a person, I would ask them questions, well, what were you all thinking about? And to a person, they said, we didn't know what we were doing. We knew we had to do something, and we knew we had each other. And that was the formula. And we can write about the strategy after it all happened, but to a person, they said, we didn't know what we were doing. We knew we had to do something, and we knew we had each other. I was listening to the previous conversation about courage, and I was reminded, Sarah, of the movie The Help, when Charlotte in The Help was talking to her daughter, Skeeter, and Skeeter was writing a book about the experiences of black maids. And Charlotte said to her daughter, sometimes courage skips a generation. Sometimes courage skips a generation. And I thought about that because it reminded me of the poet who said, I'm tired of keeping my little boat safe inside the harbor's bar. I want to go out where the big ships float, out on the deep, where the great ones are. And if my frail craft proves too slight for waves that sweep the billows o'er, I'd rather go out in the stirring fight than drowse to death by the sheltered shore. That is our calling. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know which strategy is going to work. But we are called in this moment to go back to the ways of our ancestors so that we could push forward for a generation yet to come. And that's the tension that we're feeling right now, that we're existing in right now. But I am confident that we can't let courage skip this generation. They are watching us to see what we will do, how we will respond, and we have everything that we need. If we don't know what to do what we know. Move money, resource in ways that are sustainable, not just the traditional one-year grant cycle, long-term gifts, go beyond 5%, endowments. Our advocacy partners are in it for the long haul. Our resources should be also. Courage cannot skip this generation. And like they said we didn't know what we were doing all the time. We knew we had to do something, and we knew we had each other, and we knew we would see a better day. We will get to that better day. We will get to that better day as long as we keep moving, as long as we stay together. We will get to that better day even if hell freezes over. And if that happens, we will learn how to ice skate, and we will still get there. So I want to say thank you. Thank you, because this means a lot to me, because it comes from our community. And I will treat it as such. And I look forward to this transformative period where we get the opportunity to show our young people the courage that we have within us. And we get the opportunity to show them a better day. Thank you, and God bless you.
So no better way than to end the conference on that note. I will just add before you all leave, thank you for being here this week in Memphis. We will see you next year in New York. We will see you the year after that in LA, and so many times in between. So thank you for being here. Travel home safely.